I'm kind of interested in some ACC talk generally, and then I think that this game ties into it. So you got on Saturday, you'll have Miami is hosting Florida State. So this is a relatively important game between, you could argue, based on some of the metrics, that they're bubble teams, which an interesting argument for sure. But you've got a Duke team that I thought was a sure thing to win the ACC. Like, I put a decent amount on it at like minus odds, Jack. Like, what is wrong with this team? Like, why can they not just
You
go
put
out?
you bet a future with minus odds?
Why can they not go out and dominate?
You're not addressing. Wait, time out. You bet a future with minus odds?
Yeah, I said it was a great bet on the podcast. How can they not go out and dominate this crappy league? This is insane to me. I'm starting to get upset. They lost the Miami game, and I was like, you know what? Blip on the radar. Coach K was like, oh, COVID, we're not in shape or whatever. Right? Sure. Then they lose on the road to Florida State. And I'm like, boys, what are we doing here? Now, the good news is the schedule is still the ACC. So you've already played Miami, you already played Florida State. You got Syracuse and Clemson at home, bounce back. Louisville, Notre Dame, like, all right, we're starting to get things rolling. I think they'll find a way to rally a little bit. But they're giving some games away, and I can't have that for my future bet. So you've got Florida State and you got Miami now. They're thriving, and they're sort of both surging. Florida State found a way to get some things going after a very weird 4-game stretch earlier in the year. They got a bunch of losses. South Carolina beat them. Syracuse, Purdue blew them out. Got a loss to Florida that wasn't all that competitive. It took them to OT with Boston University. Like, very weird things from Florida State, which also appears to have scheduled North Florida randomly in the middle of the week. But they've got a Miami team that I think might be legit.
They go to North Florida. Oh, wait, at home and then away. It would make sense if they were at. Never mind. Disregard me.
I don't know why they wanted to go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It seems like a lot of games for them. But Miami's playing out of its mind. Their only conference loss is a 1-point road loss to Florida State. They've already beaten Duke and Cameron. And then they blew the living crap out of North Carolina at home. Like, they're actually good. Jim Larinaga, on the tail end of his coaching career, he's got a little team here. I'm excited about them and also devastated for my Duke future.
Do you think Miami's going to win the ACC then?
I think they'll end up fading, right? You have to think they'll end up fading. I mean, like, Dayton spanked them. They lost to UCF at home, and Alabama blew them out. They got like competitive wins over Florida Atlantic and North Texas.
Like, they're not playing that schedule anymore. They're playing even worse competition now in the ACC.
Yeah, all right. But I mean, like, the Duke win was really impressive. They're very good, but they also, like, 1-point home win over Syracuse could have went either way. Duke game probably could have went either way. I guess Florida State, you could say the same thing. But they've had some close games. So I think eventually they'll kind of take their lumps. They're like 59th in KenPom because they don't play great defense. But I like their team. Like, I like the guys they have on it. They can score, make some plays. Isaiah Wong is a player I think who's been underrated during portions of his career. Cameron McGusty's a good player. Charlie Moore is sweet. DePaul transfer, guy's awesome. Also played at Kansas and Cal, so he's pretty much played at every college in the country. And now he's enjoying some time at Miami. I don't know what my bet is for this game. I don't know. Like, I don't know what my bet is. I just wanted to talk about this stupid ACC because I made this future bet that I thought was a lock. I thought this was essentially free money, which is obviously not how betting works. But I really felt confident that I was like, all right, like, this is Duke's year to win the ACC regular season title. There's not much competition. And then I did a baby hedge on North Carolina. I was like, if anyone else gets them, it'll be North Carolina. And then Miami, where does Miami come from?
You're sitting here now. Both of those teams are 4-2 in conference play. Miami's 6-1 in conference play. I mean, it just takes one loss. It takes Miami
with a win over
all of a
Duke.
sudden they're all tied. What was that? Sorry.
Miami 6-1 with an outright win over Duke at Duke. That's what I hate.
That's very true. And I love you.
Don't like that one bit.
We're gonna take this podcast into a quick ACC side channel. And I have two questions for you. We're gonna go ACC here. Two questions. John Rothstein and not a lot of pundits. It's really just John Rothstein. He's saying the ACC is cannibalizing itself. And I don't think that's necessarily true because I don't think they're getting a lot of bids in. And this leads into my second question, along with, is it cannibalizing itself? And second, is the ACC like going to get 4 teams in?
Yeah, I think 4 is probably the number that makes a lot of sense. Well, Duke's getting in, right? I don't think that'll actually end up being a question. Duke will make it in. But then you're looking at some teams that right now are not all that impressive. I mean, you could look and say, all right, well, like North Carolina is a tournament team. And then you look at the resume, it's like every time they play a solid team, they lose. Like their best win is Michigan, and Michigan's probably really overrated. And then you're looking at Virginia is their other best win. Like Virginia's an NIT team. So North Carolina is, like, in my opinion, on the bubble. The good news for the ACC is the bubble kind of sucks this year. Like it's kind of a crappy bubble. Like college basketball at large in those like middling spots kind of stinks. So if you go on a little bit of a run, you can make something happen. But a lot of these teams don't have overly impressive metrics. You look at Wake Forest, like Wake Forest is where it is because they beat up on crappy teams. So you're looking at a bunch of teams, I think at the end of the season, you're going to look at their resume and be like, oh yeah, they're a bubble team. And then you look for their like top net wins or quad 1, quad 2, and you're like, wow, these are pretty low. So even with like a team like Miami, they're 14-4 and they're in a really good spot. But let's say they start to lose a few games. You could have a Miami team. Let's say they lose 3 in a row. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Let's say they lose to Florida State and Virginia Tech. They are favored to lose. We both keep saying that, but they are expected to lose per KenPom to Virginia Tech on the road. Florida State game should be close. You lose those two, you're 14-6. You're probably in the 60s of KenPom. The Duke wins carrying a whole lot of weight, plus North Carolina, and you've probably still an NCAA tournament team, but you could start poking holes in the resumes really quickly. Where I feel like Duke's probably getting in, and then there's probably going to be some combination of North Carolina, Florida State, Miami, and Wake Forest. And I don't think all 5 of those will get in.
All right. I really like that breakdown. I have one last question for you about the ACC, and then we'll get off. Well, you didn't give a bet for Miami FSU. We'll get to that after this question. I was looking over the ACC standings.
Sure.
Kevin Keats came from UNCW. A lot of hype into his NC State kind of run. He's gotten worse with each year there. Is his seat hot?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance they move on. I don't know exactly the contract situation, but it's been, I did some radio hits when I was on the UVA beat with our good friend Dave Thomas, who has, I think, moved back to the North Carolina area, but he had some North Carolina ties while he was at the Virginia station, and would talk to me a decent amount actually about NC State. And he had some like connections and NC State fans who were already getting frustrated in the past couple of years. So yeah, I mean, he's been there. What is this, year 5? He
was hired in 2018. Just for a quick breakdown for the listeners.
Yeah.
He was hired in 2018 from UNCW. At UNCW, he took over. This is the full Kevin Keats resume. He took over a team that was 174th in KenPom, led them to an 18-14 record in the CAA, and kind of dominated the CAA his 3 years while he was there, progressively getting better. 174, 83, 59th in KenPom. Gets hired to NC State in 2018. His first season there goes 21-12, 46th in KenPom, and I believe makes the NCAA tournament and is a first-round exit. Next season, they get a little bit better. They're number 41 in KenPom, 24-12. I don't think they make the NCAA tournament, though, probably NIT.
Yep, NIT team.
And in 2020, a little bit of a slip, 20-12, though, still. 2020, though, is the weird season, of course, COVID.
Yeah, bubble team.
Bubble team, probably would have made it. Then in 2021, major slippage to 71st in KenPom, 14-11, just 3 games above 500, which is his worst since he took over. And then this season, they're sitting at 9-9, 106 in KenPom with a good offense, an all right defense, and one of the slowest tempos in the nation.
It's just, I mean, they're just not good. Like they're not good. They don't seem to be trending in the right direction. You also don't have a bunch of guys where it's like, oh, well, they've got these guys or they've shown the ability to add huge transfers. So if you're NC State and you're sitting there and you're like, we want to be competitive within the state. And if you can do that in North Carolina, you're going to be a very good college basketball team. But they haven't been able to do that within the state. I mean, Wake Forest is literally a better basketball team. That's got to be incredibly infuriating if you're an NC State fan where it's like, I want to compete with Duke in North Carolina, not Wake Forest. Like you think of Wake Forest as just kind of an afterthought, and Steve Forbes and company are kind of kicking their butt. We'll see. I guess they don't play until February, if I'm not mistaken, and looking at the right schedule. But Like Richmond beat them handily. Wright State handed them a loss, 14-point loss at home. I mean, you can point to a couple nice road wins recently where they beat Louisville and Virginia Tech, and it's like, all right, maybe there's something going there. But like, they're just really, really average, and I think they would like to be better than average. When they hired Kevin Keatts, the goal was to be better than average, and it started off and it was like, okay, they got some stuff going here, and they're kind of maybe struggling a little bit in conference play, which is what's keeping them out of the NCAA tournament. But to go however many years it is now, to be the 5th year without an NCAA tournament win at a Power 5 that like cares about basketball, that probably doesn't cut it.
Love that breakdown. And so now moving in, last thing about the ACC, what's your Miami FSU pick?
Gosh, I don't love any of the picks in this game, but I feel like you have to give one.
All this ACC talk, we have to cap it off with a pick with the best ACC game on Saturday.
I'm going to say that I would take Miami because I do like that they're at home. And I think with the rivalry, I think that place, given what they've done recently, I feel like the fan base students are actually going to be like, you know what, this is kind of cool. It's on a Saturday. Let's go out and support them. So I think the home atmosphere is going to be really solid. I think they'll find a way to edge out Florida State in what is probably going to be a really close game. And Florida State thrives by forcing turnovers. Miami really does not commit that many. That's because they have electric guards, including Charlie Moore, who is just really, really fun to watch and one of the best assist to turnover guys I think you'll probably find in the ACC. So he's solid. I'll take Miami in that one.
I'm going to take Miami too. After all that talk about the ACC, all that talk about Miami early on in that discussion, you sold me on Miami, and I have faith in them.
They're a fun one. They are a fun one.